So, who of you out there have ever felt this pressure that you need to be doing things like this? Get online. You need to be building your brand personality. You need to become a key person of influence if you want to achieve anything. You got to get yourself online, start doing video. Who's ever felt that? Have you ever felt frustrated or a little, I'm missing out. I'm meant to be doing this thing, but I just don't feel confident enough to do it. Maybe you feel like you don't quite know what to say. Is that a common concern? Or maybe you also feel like, well, who's going to care? Who's going to care what you've got to say and who's going to watch? That's the worst thing, right? If no one's watching. Or maybe you think, I'm just not very good at speaking. I'm not very good at public speaking and I never remember what to say. Well, if that's you, then this talk is probably pretty good for you, because I'd like to challenge that and say, no, it's not that you're no good at public speaking, that you can't remember what you want to say. It's nothing to do with that. It's just that, you know what? Sometimes we're not always clear and we're not always confident exactly what our message is. We can feel it for sure, right? But it's just getting it out. And that's what I'd like to share with you in this live, is some of the ways that you can look to be getting on video, even if you're someone that really you don't feel like you want to. But I'm going to be sharing some ways that you can, in a way that feels positive and constructive and will have you feeling more clear and confident over time. Okay, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, just to tell you where I'm coming from with all this. So my name's Batchelor. I am the curator and license holder for TEDx Focusin, which is the TEDx Talks event that we do in Focusin every year. I'm also a presenter and I'm a video producer as well. And a lot of the work that I do is around helping people to find, and when I say find, I mean more like refine their message. And in saying message, it's their contribution, what they have got to say and speak and share with the world. But you know what? It wasn't always this way. I feel like from doing the TED stuff, people think, oh, you must be like amazing at speaking, you must be really confident. And I say, nah, not at all. All those stuff, those bits I shared at the beginning, that's exactly how I felt a lot of the time and still do. I'll be very honest and say, and I've done a TED talk, I've presented things, I've presented a TV show, and I still, a lot of the time to be honest, don't feel clear about my message. But that gives me empathy and I totally get where you're coming from if that's you. So I'll give you a little bit of a background. So kind of growing up, I was quite creative. I always had loads of ideas going around in my head, but no matter what I tried to do, I could not express them in a way that people seem to get, and trying to explain ideas and just getting those like, what are you talking about looks like from your family was just the worst. And I made myself wrong for that I wasn't very good at communicating, right? But you know what, as a result, I became pretty good at doing. Where I couldn't tell, I learned to do instead. And that's probably why I ended up doing a lot of creative stuff. I was a painter for a long time, wanted to be a designer, because I couldn't express it, so I had to show it, so I had to tell it. And I assume there's probably lots of creative people watching now. Is that the same for you? It may well be. And we find other alternative ways to express ourselves. Those things that we feel deep inside, they have to come out one way or another. They just maybe come out in a creative way rather than a spoken way. But what I'd like to do is help you maybe to regain some power. It doesn't mean you don't do the creative stuff you're doing, but you add a string to your bow in your ability to speak your message as well. And I'd like to share some of that and my experience of how I got through it, and then also some tips for getting on video with things like this. So this applies to not only getting on video, maybe it's doing lives, maybe it's doing videos in general, it may be public speaking, but it can also be, because I said at the beginning, it's around expressing kind of that stuff that's a little bit deeper, that's really important to you. So it's also things like talking in your bio, like on your website, for example, oh, everyone hates that, right? How do you talk about yourself? It's icky. Self-promotion, all that kind of stuff. Maybe doing presentations, maybe networking events. Hopefully, all the stuff I'm saying here, you can apply to any setting that is relevant for you, where you feel a loss of power in being able to express your message verbally. Because I tell you what the breakthrough was for me, was realising that it wasn't me. It wasn't that I wasn't very good at expressing my idea. And it wasn't even the other people. It wasn't even my friends and family who I'd shared these ideas with, who, it wasn't their fault they didn't get me. But I tell you what it was that I didn't actually myself yet understand the idea. Like, how many of you will relate to this idea that you've got this big idea for whatever your creative medium may be, but it's still an idea up here, right? It's not clear, it's not articulated, and often it takes a long part of the process, of your creative process, to work out exactly what it is. You have to get it out of your head. And I'd say, and the core part of my message is, you're speaking your message and you being able to articulate what your thing is and to get online, do videos and share value with other people comes down to you getting clear on what it is through the process, right? So what about this for a change in a way of thinking about getting on video, doing lives, public speaking in any context is, of course you're not going to know what you want to say when you first start it. First time you started anything, first time you started driving, you didn't know it perfectly, did you? It was through practice that you got better at it. And this is one of the key things that always saying to speakers for TEDx or anyone when it comes to video is, yes, you will be rubbish when you first start. That's the of developing a skill, right? So why would you expect yourself to jump on a live the first time you've ever done public speaking and be perfect at it? So what if you were to give yourself the permission to be a little bit rubbish at first? Because I tell you the brilliant thing about doing things on social media, and you may see it as a negative, but it can also be seen as a positive, is when you first do a first video, chances are no one's going to see it, right? That could be depressing. You might have some friends and family and they'll put some nice comments on it and all this kind of stuff, but reality is no one is going to see it because you haven't built an audience for your message, for your idea, whatever it is you do, right? But the brilliant thing with that is there's not going to be so much failure. You're not going to fail if no one saw it. And what's brilliant about social media is if people don't like what you say or didn't really get any value from what you're talking about, they're just not going to share it. And therefore, no one else is going to see it, right? And then it's just going to disappear off the feed and you can go, oh, well, that didn't really work, but I learned a lot from it, right? And then you do the next one. And the chances are, okay, you might get one person who maybe likes it a bit, so they might like it. And then, okay, so maybe a few more people will see it. And then the next time, okay, you've refined again, you've improved, you've developed. Okay, maybe you get 2 likes and maybe a share. Okay, more people see it. And that's the way that you can be working on this. Get over yourself in the nicest possible way that the first time you put a video out, everyone's going to go, oh my God, either good or bad. Both ways, they're not, right? And even if putting it on social is still a bit too much for you to take in, then, well, just share it in a small group. Just share it with friends. Just share it one-to-one. Because the whole thing is only by speaking your message out loud will you find it, okay? This is exactly how TEDx Focusin came about, because I kind of had got to the point where I was sick of trying to work everything out in my head, spending hours and hours of work, trying to refine and find the perfect way of saying stuff, and people still didn't get it anyway, because I hadn't actually tested it, because it was all up here. Whereas when I decided, you know what, I don't really care if people don't get it. I'm going to share it, and I'm going to share it because I'm excited by it. And that was the first and foremost thing, was I'm just sharing my passion. And it was gobbledygook, right? The first time I talked about TEDx Focusin, I don't know if there's anyone watching who was there at the first meeting, but the difference between then and now, how I talk about it, is huge, right? But it only came because I talked about it over and over and over again. So what about if you were to take the approach, the first time you do a video of any sort, or any sort of public speaking, it will not be anywhere near what your own message is, right? Then you can almost say, whatever you want, and almost purposely you want it to be bad, because then it means it's not going to be bad once you get to the end, right? So speaking it to find it is the only way it's going to become clearer. And you know what? Also, sometimes something I found with TEDx Focusin was not having all the answers, not having it perfectly right, was a reason for people to engage with me and the message and idea. They'd say, oh, I'm not quite sure I understand. Do you mean this? But then you get a dialogue, then you get a conversation, right? About, right, I understood this from what you said. Is that what you meant? And then you have a chance to correct, refine, improve, and potentially they might say something and go, do you mean this? And you're, oh, yes, I never, that's exactly what I meant, but I hadn't found a way to articulate it like that. So feedback, when it comes to speaking, is hugely important, because public speaking isn't just about one person speaking, right? If you speak at nothing, it doesn't really feel good. How many of us talk to ourselves? Maybe in our heads, but not out loud, right? Whereas if you're speaking to a person, it's about getting a response from that. So how can you get better at public speaking if you never interact with a person that's going to be listening or hearing or engaging with it? Okay. So that's kind of the fundamentals and the core of kind of my message. And I think to summarise it, it's very much this approach of explore and experiment, right? And this applies to everything and anything really, but particularly when it comes to our speaking, is words and language is such a complex thing, right? We have to find our own way and our own style, and we can only find that by opening our mouths and actually doing it. So I want to tell you now a couple of tips though of how you can get started, because this is what it comes down to, is you've just got to get started. As scary and horrible as that is, find some kind of platform, even if it's with one person, to go, oh, I'm kind of thinking about this idea, or I'd like to do some Facebook Lives, or I think I'd like to do some public speaking, maybe at some local networking events about this idea XYZ, but I'm not really sure what to talk about. Okay, and spitball, throw some ideas at them, right? But you've got to get started. So I want to give you some tips really on how you can get started, because once you've started, you'll find that there's momentum, and getting feedback, positive or negative, is the thing you need to be able to evolve. So you just have to take that first step, and that is literally it. Only if there's one thing to take away from this, is just do one tiny, tiny, tiny step from which you'll get the confidence or the clarity or even a little bit of feedback on how to improve and go forward. So I've got a few tips on kind of how to work out the content of what you want to say, and a few tips in terms of delivery. So I've got 7 in total. Let's go for the first 3, which are around how to work out your content and what you want to say. The first one I think is maybe counterintuitive, but is around kind of, why do you not want to do this? Because yes, you may procrastinate and you may be putting this off, but if you look at why don't you want to do this, then you can confront the things that are stopping you. And you know what? It might be that some of the reasons why you don't want to do it are actually key to what you want to say. So maybe it's, okay, I don't want to do this because I don't think I've got any value to add. Okay, right, well, how do you know if you're adding value? Because you've never asked anyone. So go out and find out if and how you add value. And yeah, if you find out you're not, okay, although that's hard and it's not going to be a very nice thing to take, you can learn and then improve and build from that. So why not? And potentially in understanding why not, it might give you an idea of a potential style or way you want to approach this. Like, okay, why not? Because I hate lecture-y videos where someone's like, you need to do this and you need to do that and we should all be doing video and you have to do it because otherwise your business is going to fail. All the things like that. Okay, for me, the why not of that is very lecture-y, it's very telling, and it's very inauthentic, right? Who am I to say? So therefore you go, right, well, I don't want to be telling people what to do. I'm going to share a story, for example. Might be one approach that you could potentially take. And it will be different for everybody, but understanding why not both gives you freedom to what you do want to do. What's the flip side of that why not? Tip number 2 is one really easy starting thing to talk about when it comes to doing video is your why. Like, why do you do what you do? Why are you passionate about it? What gets you up in the morning? What lights you up? Or what bit of feedback that you maybe get from your customers or your clients makes you go, oh my God, all that hard work was worth it. That's a really easy place to start, because you're being super authentic. It's about you, but equally it's a way, you're being vulnerable as well, and it's a way for people to connect with you. And a kind of part B of the benefit of talking about your why is that it's for you as much as it is for anyone else. And like I said, those first few videos, no one's going to watch anyway. Like maybe your friends and family will watch the first one for novelty, like, oh, well done, you've done it. They might not watch, stick them through. So if you understand why, then it's re-clarifying for you why you're doing this, which will probably be the thing that will spur you on, get you motivated. It's like lighting the fire underneath you. So share your why. That's a great, super easy place to start, and sets the tone really for everything else that can come next. And then the third thing on the kind of from a content point of view and starting out is looking at kind of what's the one thing. So there's a common thing that we always say to people when they're doing their TED Talks, when they're doing their applications, is you want to share one thing, one point, one message, one idea that you want to get across, because the reality is people won't remember 99% of what you say. They'll remember one little bit, right? So get one message across and then really flesh that out. This also makes it a lot easier for you in that you don't try and fit your whole life and everything you know and all the pieces of advice you could ever give. You just chunk it up. Right, today I'm going to talk about this one thing. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about this other one thing. And that gives you a reason every video to be clear. It also helps you keep it concise, which is a big thing. And in terms of working out what your one thing is, go for the easiest thing. Start with what's ever easiest, right? Go for the thing you're an expert in. And you know what, actually sometimes the thing you're an expert in and you are best qualified to talk about will be the thing that almost you don't realise is a thing, because it's so ingrained and so obvious to you. So this is another reason to be asking people for feedback. Ask your friends and family, like, what's the thing that I just do that's just a given that I never really talk about, but you think is what makes me good at what I do? So that's one way to start. Okay, let's look. I've got you 4 tips now in terms of delivery, actually getting up and starting, and kind of maybe a way to structure it, because that'll help give you the confidence if you're clear and confident of the structure and that other people will get maximum value with. So the first one is, don't start by being nice and pleasant and say, oh, hi, how is everybody? Hope you're well. Thank you very much for watching. Oh, it's a bad day today, isn't it? Oh, because everyone's like, okay, yeah, get on with it. What are you actually saying? They'll have clicked off. People have a super short, like 3-second attention span. So start by going straight in. Like, if you watch back at the start of this video, you'll see that I started with, have you ever felt like everyone's going, you need to get on video? But have you ever felt frustrated about it? I kind of asked the question immediately and went straight in with the stuff that probably is getting at you, which is eating at you, that might make you go, yeah, that annoys me, ugh. So if you start with that, then you instantly hook people in. Then once you've told them that, you then go into, okay, so this is me, this is who I am, this is my expertise, this is why I'm kind of qualified, or why my experience makes me make this video. That's the key thing. Get their attention before you then tell them who you are, what you do, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, next tip is it's something I learned from doing radio. So the guys at Academy FM taught me this, and it was key. So when you do radio, you have about 5 to 6 minutes maximum between songs that you're allowed to talk on. Any more than that, that's a kind of really faux pas. You don't really go down, make it too long, right? So always know how you're going to start and know how you're going to finish. Okay, and that can be in segments, but equally in your piece that you're talking about as a whole. Is if you know how you're going to start, then you set that up, you set the tone, and you kind of almost like you set. At least if you head in the right direction, you're more likely to go roughly where you wanted to go. So, you know, we're going to be talking about this, or does XYZ annoy you? That's what I'm going to explore today, and then you'll naturally flow and keep talking about that, and you almost don't have to prep the rest of the stuff that comes in between, because if you introduce it right and are clear from the front, this is what we're going to be talking about, you'll naturally roll into the rest. On the other side of that, you also want to be clear how you're going to finish, because this is a big thing that's very easy, is we don't know how to stop, we don't know how to conclude and wrap it up. We kind of feel embarrassed, like to suddenly go, okay, yeah, and I'm done. So know how you're going to finish, because then you cut yourself off and you go, right, and I'm done. That's my one idea, and I'm not going to ramble, I'm not going to tell you everything I want to say. That's the one thing I'm going to finish with. Even if it's something as simple as, so I hope you found that useful. If anyone's got any questions, you can put them below or check me out on the website. Just something that you know what your closing thing is, rather than, okay, well, I hope I haven't talked too long, and maybe you found that useful, and you get that embarrassment. Be clear and confident, this is what I'm finishing with, and boom, you're done and you're out, and finish. Next one is, if you can't articulate what it is that you want to say at that moment in time, you know, or in general, then kind of leave it for the time. There are some, like I said about this, it's not a turn the video on and suddenly it'll be perfect. This is an ongoing journey, and something you'll explore probably over a number of weeks, months, years. Like, I've been doing TEDx for about 3-4 years now, and I'm still finding ways and refining it, right? And at first there were things I couldn't articulate, but I have learnt to over time. So if something's a bit tricky, let yourself off the hook, right? Focus on the stuff you can talk about and you're confident talking about, and come back to those bits you can't articulate. Because often, and this is a really interesting thing we find a lot of the time with TEDx speakers, is often if someone keeps stumbling on a certain bit, or they can't articulate a bit, or they're really coming up against it about that little bit, it normally means it's not right. Okay, so it's not just develop your content and then deliver it. Content and delivery, they go hand in hand. Like, the way you feel when you deliver something, if it doesn't work for you and you always feel uncomfortable talking about it, then it tells you that there's something not right in it. So really trust in your emotions and feel what works. You'll find yourself using certain words, for example, and then you can kind of go, maybe that's at the core of what's really important to me. And then the final tip, number 7, is around formats, okay? There are multiple different ways to put yourself out there on video, and it's not all talking to camera like this, which, I'll be honest, isn't anywhere near. It's probably my least favourite way to do it, because I can't gauge anyone's interest. My eyes keep popping up to the corner to see how many people are watching. I see the numbers go down, I go, oh God, they don't like it, it's not good, whatever it may be. Whereas if you find a format that does work for you, this isn't a natural format, right? I'm effectively talking to myself, and how often do we do that? So it's not a natural format, but find something that does work. What I really love doing in terms of ways of creating content and ways of sharing both my message, but also my message being around helping other people find theirs, is interviews. Like, interviews are natural, right? How often do we have conversations with people? So that's a great way to start. Have it 2 of you. You can still do it as a live, but just be like, right, today me and so-and-so are going to have a chat about X, and then you explore it. Or even get someone else to ask you some questions. They're interviewing you maybe. You can do it if you're not sure what to talk about, what your value is. You can do a Q&A. It could be a live Q&A, or you could put some posts out before you do your video to say, you know, I'm going to be talking around the topic of video and public speaking. What questions would people like to know about that? And see what they come back with. And then talk about those, because then you've got the confidence that what you're talking about is relevant to what people want to know. With that in mind, I think sometimes you can put stuff out and you won't get much response. And that doesn't mean that people aren't interested. It just means maybe, again, this whole idea of explore and experiment, different ways of wording it, both in the written word and in the spoken word, of describing it, to find a way that people go, oh, yes, that's exciting. Because there's a million different ways of saying one statement, and some will resonate and some won't. So just experiment with what does and doesn't resonate. So those are my 7 tips. Let me run through them again. We've got look at why not. If you're struggling to get started, look at why you don't want to do it, and that will probably give you some clue about how you could do it, because you don't want to be preachy. Therefore, maybe you tell a story, and that's your approach and that's your style you go with. Talk about your why. As a starting video, that's an easy starting video. Talk about why you do what you do and why you're passionate. People love hearing people be passionate about what they do. Even if they're not interested in it, there's that support if you are enjoying what you're talking about. It'll also help you find the motivation to keep going. Focus on one thing, okay? Just one thing at a time. Go, I'm only talking about this in this video. Don't be nice and kind of, welcome, over rambling at the beginning. Just get straight to it, grab people's attention and hit them straight where the problem is. what their concern is about whatever area you're talking about. Go straight in with that before you then start talking about yourself. Number 5 is know how to start and know how to finish. This is a classic radio tip. Know how you're going to start the conversation, and that will set you up for the rest of it, and know how you're going to finish. And when you're ready to finish, just finish. If you can't articulate it, then it's probably telling you something. So don't make yourself wrong or beat yourself up if you keep stumbling over a particular topic. Just step away maybe from it, or give yourself a break and let yourself explore with it a little bit more and give yourself that time. And then the final one is different formats. You don't have to just turn the camera on and talk to it, because this is not a nice, easy format by any means. Try interviews, try Q&As, try, doing it at an event. Do public speaking, but get someone to film it. Do it in small groups. Start with smaller groups or maybe one-to-one, and refine and learn as you go along. Because yes, this sort of stuff is scary, especially if you're wanting to talk about the really deep stuff that's really fundamental to you, your values, what's important to you, and the contribution that you have to make. It won't be easy, right? That's why you have to give yourself a bit of a break. Allow yourself to get it wrong, to experiment, because feedback, getting people engaging or how they respond, even if they don't respond how you think they would or what you actually meant, use that to go, okay, that's how they interpreted it. How can I tweak what I'm doing accordingly? Nothing you say is wrong. It's just maybe not articulated in the most efficient or effective way to make it resonate with people. And don't do it because you should do it, right? Do it because this is an opportunity for you not just to get on video and promote yourself or promote your business or whatever you do. Like, the far more valuable thing than that is the opportunity for you to get clear and be able to articulate clear and confident what it is that's most important to you, right? If you know that, then motivation's easier. You'll focus hard decisions about, oh, I've got these 2 business options, which way do I go? Well, if you know your values, you can go, well, which one lines up better with that? So it'll help you in all areas to be able to articulate this idea, because like I said, it's all up here and it's all a bit of a mess when it's up here, right? And get it out of your mouth, get it out, and yeah, some of it will be wrong and you'll speak it and you'll go, oh, that wasn't what I meant. But only by you doing it can you get rid of it and move on to what is your message. So I hope you found that useful. I hope you found it interesting. If anyone's got any immediate questions, you can either ask them on here or put them in the comments below and I'll try and reply. I've got to say as well, this has been part of, hang on, I've got a little piece to read to tell you what this is a part of, and my laptop's fallen asleep. So thank you very much to Creative Focusin and Southeast Creatives. They've invited me along to do this live as part of the Southeast Creatives programs of business support for the creative and digital industry. So this is what this has been. If you've just tuned in, sorry you missed it, you're going to have to go back and watch it later on. It will be going up online. To find out more, go to Creative Focusin website and search Southeast Creatives. A link will also be added to the comments below, so you can go find out more about it. Like I said, any questions, put them below. Next week, coming up, you've got Nikki Lal, Wednesday the 8th at 10 AM. She is an awesome creative recruiter. I've been chatting and she is just like a ball of fire when it comes to like helping creatives get themselves out there. She's amazing, really good. She's going to be offering you advice on CV, portfolio tips if you're a creative. I know it's obviously a really tricky time at the moment. A lot of freelancers are struggling to get work. This is the lady that can help you perfect your portfolio and refine it. You've got a bit of time, get on it now. She's doing some amazing stuff, so make sure you follow her. I hope you've enjoyed this. Yeah, have fun. See you later, guys.